USA, September 28, 2024.
Hey, what the 106?
I feel better that Scott Woods is on that list. Help, Ken. Okay.
Helene continues to unleash its fury across the southeast after leaving at least 49 people dead in multiple states, leveling communities, knocking out power and stranding many in floodwaters following the historic storm's landfall in Florida's Big Bend region Thursday night as a monstrous Category 4 hurricane. A flash flood emergency issued for portions of Cock, Greene, and Hamblin counties in eastern Tennessee has been extended until noon Eastern Time. The emergency is for an imminent dam break on the Nolichucky River below the Nolichucky Dam and affects an area with more than 5,800 residents and 2 schools. The National Weather Service says dam operators reported the imminent failure of Nolichucky Dam in the flood emergency report. Several rivers in the Blue Ridge Mountains of western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee have risen rapidly. Even though the heaviest rainfall is over, an additional 1 to 2 inches should fall this weekend. River levels will take hours to days to recede back below critical levels. If the dam fails, flooding can result in an extremely dangerous and life-threatening situation, the Weather Service said. Storm-related deaths have been reported in South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, and Virginia. At least 19 are dead in South Carolina, including 2 firefighters in Saluda County, according to state officials. In Georgia, at least 15 people have died, 2 of them killed by a tornado in Alamo, according to a spokesperson for Governor Brian Kemp. Florida officials reported 8 deaths, including several people who drowned in Pinellas County. 6 more deaths were reported in North Carolina, and they include a car wreck on a storm-slick road that killed a 4-year-old girl. And in Craig County, Virginia, 1 person died in a storm-related tree fall and building collapse, Governor Glenn Youngkin said Friday. Additional rainfall is expected this weekend across portions of the southern Appalachian region. Additional totals of up to 1 inch are expected for areas of western North Carolina, including Asheville, and eastern Tennessee, including Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg. Up to 2 inches is possible for portions of Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania through Monday. Although rainfall amounts will be light, areas that received excessive rainfall from Helene may see isolated aggression of excessive runoff, the National Weather Service office in Greenville-Spartanburg said Saturday morning. Nearly 4,000 National Guardsmen were conducting rescue efforts in 21 counties across Florida, the Defense Department said Friday. North Carolina, Georgia, and Alabama have also activated Guardsmen. The Biden administration has also mobilized more than 1,500 federal personnel to support communities affected by Helene, Vice President Kamala Harris said Friday. Helene is one of the worst storms in modern history for parts of North Carolina, Governor Roy Cooper said. Western parts of the state were slammed by heavy rains and strong winds bordering on hurricane strength levels, life-threatening flash flooding, numerous landslides and power outages. More than 100 people were rescued from high waters, the governor said. More than 2 feet of rain fell in the state's mountainous region from Wednesday morning to Friday morning, with Busick recording a total of 29.58 inches in just 48 hours. In the hard-hit city of Asheville, a citywide curfew was in effect until 7:30 a.m. Saturday, officials said. About 20 miles southwest of Asheville, overwhelming, torrential rainfall was pushing the Lake Lure Dam into imminent failure, according to the National Weather Service. Meanwhile, the remnants of Helene continued to knock out power for several states across the eastern U.S. on Saturday morning, with nearly 3.3 million customers left in the dark in South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, and Ohio, according to PowerOutage.us.
Oh, I hope not. Oh, we're gonna go up and...
Helene's remnants will continue to bring rain and gusty winds over hundreds of miles of the east. Multiple states have recorded more than a foot of rain, with at least 14 different flash flood emergencies issued for approximately 1.1 million people in the southern Appalachians of western North Carolina and adjacent parts of Tennessee, South Carolina, and Virginia. In addition to the rainfall, winds continued to gust 30 to 50 miles per hour over the Ohio and Tennessee Valley regions Friday evening, and more than 35 million people were under wind alerts heading into Saturday. USA, September 30, 2024.
It'll probably go to the side.
Southeast is grappling with widespread devastation after Helene made landfall Thursday as the strongest hurricane on record to slam into Florida's Big Bend region and tore through multiple states, killing at least 93 people, knocking out power to millions and trapping families in floodwaters. In hard-hit North Carolina, days of unrelenting flooding have turned roads into waterways, left many without necessities, and strained state resources.
Oh my God, it's breaking.
At least 93 dead across 6 states. Deaths have been reported in South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, and Tennessee. At least 36 people are dead in North Carolina, according to county and state officials. At least 25 are dead in South Carolina, including 2 firefighters in Saluda County, authorities said. In Georgia, at least 17 people have died, 2 of them killed by a tornado in Alamo, according to a spokesperson for Governor Brian Kemp. In Florida, at least 11 people have died, Governor Ron DeSantis said Saturday, including several people who drowned in Pinellas County. 2 people have died in Virginia, officials said Sunday, and 2 deaths were reported in Tennessee.
Just to give you an understanding of the devastation we're dealing with here. Chimney Rock's gone.
Officials in Buncombe County, North Carolina have received about 600 missing persons reports through an online form, County Manager Avril Pinder said Sunday. Former FEMA Administrator Craig Fugate encouraged people not to lose hope. Communications being out and loved ones being unreachable doesn't necessarily mean the worst has happened. The state's telecommunications partners activated disaster roaming on all networks, meaning any phone on any carrier can access any network to place calls, State Emergency Management Director William Ray said. About 300 roads are closed in North Carolina and another 150 are closed in South Carolina, Acting Federal Highway Administrator Kristen White of the U.S. Department of Transportation said Sunday. North Carolina officials acknowledged on Sunday that those closures had hampered the delivery of water supplies to communities in need, like Weaverville in Buncombe County, which is without power and water. About 2.1 million power customers are in the dark in South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and Virginia, according to PowerOutage.us. On Sunday, Michael Callahan, president of Duke Energy's utility operations in South Carolina, said infrastructure repairs need to precede power restoration efforts. Still, the utility hoped to have most of its customers in that state back up by Friday. President Joe Biden was briefed by FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell and Homeland Security Advisor Liz Sherwood Randall on recovery efforts from Hurricane Helene and will visit impacted communities from the storm later this week, as soon as it will not disrupt emergency response operations, the White House said Sunday evening. On Sunday, Biden spoke with Georgia Governor Brian Kemp and North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper as well as other officials across North Carolina, Tennessee, Florida, and South Carolina. Former President Donald Trump on Sunday sent his condolences to those affected by Helene, which was the strongest hurricane on record to slam into Florida's Big Bend region. North Carolina on Sunday joined Florida and Georgia as states where the federal government has declared a public health emergency. The government has deployed 200 people who are assessing how hospitals, nursing homes, and other care facilities were affected, as well as sending medical care task forces. The announcement comes as President Joe Biden has approved federal disaster declarations for Florida, Georgia, Alabama, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia on Sunday. Helene dumped staggering amounts of rain, including 12 to 14 inches in South Carolina, 12 to 16 inches in Florida, and 12 to 14 inches in Georgia, said Ken Graham, the director of the National Weather Service. The storm became a post-tropical cyclone on Friday. But rainfall is expected to continue this weekend across parts of the southern Appalachian region. Additional totals of half an inch are expected for areas of western North Carolina, including Asheville, and eastern Tennessee, including Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg. Up to 2 inches is possible for portions of Virginia and West Virginia through Monday. Additional rainfall is not expected to exacerbate ongoing flooding but may lead to excessive runoff due to saturated soils, the Weather Service said Sunday morning.
But I've been recording for 8 minutes. Okay, yeah, I'll give you my phone. Do you want it now?
Yeah, I can do it.
Cyclone, November 20th, 2024. A once-in-a-decade bomb cyclone lashed the northwest United States and parts of Canada early Wednesday, with hurricane-force wind gusts, leaving at least one person dead and hundreds of thousands without power across Washington state, California, and British Columbia. In Seattle and neighboring cities, strong winds are tumbling trees, with some falling on houses and placing lives at risk. In Linwood, north of Seattle, a woman in her 50s was killed when a large tree fell on a homeless encampment shortly after 7 p.m. More than 650,000 customers lost power in the early hours of Wednesday in Washington, while about 140,000 customers were without power in British Columbia, BC Hydro reported on its website. As of midnight PT, over 24,000 customers in California were without power. The National Weather Service has reported notable wind gusts across the region, including off the coast of British Columbia, where winds were blowing at 101 miles per hour at the South Brooks Buoy. Gusts of 72 to 77 miles per hour were recorded in Washington state, including at Cape Elizabeth on the Olympic Peninsula, and at Crystal Mountain and Sunrise Mount Rainier inland southeast of Seattle. Videos show multiple fallen trees on power lines in Lake Stevens, Snohomish County, north of Seattle, with Snohomish Regional Fire and Rescue saying that there are many trees and power lines down. In Maple Valley, a city southeast of Seattle, 2 people were rescued after a tree fell on their trailer, according to Puget Sound Fire. One patient was freed quickly, while it took firefighters an hour to extricate the second. Both patients were transferred to a nearby hospital. An Amtrak train collided with a fallen tree near an intersection in Stanwood, north of Seattle on Tuesday night. The incident left the train inoperable, though none of the 47 passengers on board sustained injuries. Several school districts in western Washington will be closed or delayed on Wednesday, due to the impact of the storm. Due to widespread power outages, fallen trees, and high winds in some areas, all school buildings will be closed on Wednesday, November 20th, and all after-school activities have been cancelled. The Eatonville School District, 60 miles south of Seattle, shared on social media. Across western Oregon, winds of 30 to 50 miles per hour were reported with gusts along the coast and offshore, reaching over 70 miles per hour late Tuesday. In Northern California, gusts offshore reached 60 miles per hour, with the high peaks in Humboldt reaching 80 miles per hour. The powerful bomb cyclone will combine with an atmospheric river to unleash over a month's worth of rain, hurricane-force wind gusts and feet of mountain snow to parts of the Pacific Northwest and Northern California. The storm system rapidly intensified on Tuesday in a phenomenon called bombogenesis, and earned it the moniker of bomb cyclone. This was one of the most intense on record for its location, a storm that occurs only about once every 10 years, the National Weather Service in Medford, Oregon, said.
That's just completely blocking the lane. Oh my god.
Bomb cyclones are formidable and unload heavy snow and strong winds during the winter. This bomb cyclone will work with an atmospheric river, a long plume of water vapor, moving like a river through the atmosphere, to wring out heavy rainfall and significant mountain snowfall in the Pacific Northwest and Northern California. The pair will stall along the coast and hammer the area with hazardous conditions through the week and into the weekend. Parts of northwestern California could record 16 inches of rain or more in 48 hours. More than a month's worth of rain is expected in the northern San Francisco Bay Area, primarily north of the Golden Gate Bridge, the Weather Service there said. Rainfall of this magnitude is expected to cause significant urban flooding, debris flow on roadways and river flooding. The heaviest rainfall is expected to begin Wednesday and peak Thursday across northwestern California. A level 3 of 4 risk of flooding rainfall is in effect there for Wednesday, and a rare level 4 of 4 high risk is in place for Thursday, according to the WPC. It's hard to overstate how big of a deal these high risks are. They are issued on fewer than 4% of days per year on average, but are responsible for more than 80% of all flood-related damage, and 40% of all flood-related deaths, research from the WPC shows. 3 to 6 inches of rain could fall Wednesday, with some spots getting up to 8 inches. Thursday's rainfall could meet or exceed Wednesday's totals, especially in the high-risk area. Heavy snowfall is expected across higher elevation areas, where winter weather alerts are in place. Blizzard warnings are in effect across parts of the Washington Cascades, where snowfall over a foot and gusts of up to 60 miles per hour are possible through Wednesday morning. Travel could be very difficult to impossible. Strong winds could cause extensive damage to trees and power lines, the National Weather Service office in Seattle warned. 1 to 4 feet of snow is possible through Wednesday across the Cascades and the northern Sierra Nevada. Snowfall could create impossible travel conditions on Interstate 5 and highways 31, 36, 66, 89, 97 and 140. Powerful winds peaked Tuesday for much of the Pacific Northwest, as the bomb cyclone began to weaken, but conditions will remain gusty across the region Wednesday. Conditions will start to improve by the weekend, but lighter rain could continue into next week.
It's pretty dead. There's like no wind.
USA, September 27, 2024. Helene made landfall in Florida's Big Bend region Thursday night as a massive Category 4 hurricane, the strongest hurricane to make landfall in the Big Bend on record. Helene has since weakened to a tropical storm and is now pushing through Georgia and the Carolinas, bringing catastrophic rainfall and life-threatening flash flooding as the storm moves toward Tennessee. At least 9 people have died as Hurricane Helene slams the South. In Charlotte, North Carolina, 1 person was killed and another was injured when a tree fell on a house, according to the Mecklenburg EMS agency. 2 people died in Lawrence County in central Georgia, according to local officials. 2 others died in nearby Wheeler County, Georgia, Governor Brian Kemp confirmed. In Florida, 1 person died in Dixie County in the Big Bend region when a tree fell on a home, Governor Ron DeSantis said. A 2nd person was killed on Interstate 4 near Tampa when a sign fell on a car. Over 800 flights have been canceled nationwide on Friday. The airports facing the most cancellations are Charlotte Douglas International Airport in North Carolina, Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, and Tampa International Airport in Florida. As of 8 a.m. EDT, Helene was approximately 35 miles south-southwest of Clemson, Georgia, and 80 miles east-northeast of Atlanta, and was racing north at 30 miles per hour, the Miami-based Hurricane Center said. It was packing maximum sustained winds of 60-30 miles per hour. Helene made landfall about 10 miles west of Perry, Florida, at 11:10 p.m. EDT, according to the Hurricane Center, with maximum sustained winds of 140 miles per hour. More than 4 million customers are waking up without power across the South Friday morning in the wake of Hurricane Helene. Over 1 million customers are without power in Georgia, and another 1 million are without power in Florida. Another 1.4 million are without power in South Carolina, and 600,000 are without power in North Carolina. Officials said that more than 50 healthcare facilities are operating on generator power across Florida. DeSantis said about 3,500 National Guardsmen were standing by to respond to emergencies. CBS News. Miami noted that when it reached land, Helene aimed squarely at the sparsely populated Big Bend area, home to fishing villages and vacation hideaways where Florida's Panhandle and Peninsula meet. Shuttered gas stations dotted the 2-lane highway, their windows boarded up with plywood. Last August, Hurricane Idalia, a Category 4 storm with maximum sustained winds of 130 miles per hour, generated a record-breaking storm surge from Tampa to the Big Bend. This August, Hurricane Debbie also hit the area. Miami-Dade Fire Rescue's urban search and rescue team members are currently staging in Ocala, which is inland from Big Bend. Meanwhile, more than 175 people were sheltering in a school in Tallahassee. Annie Sloan, who was one of them, told CBS News Miami, "I decided to come to the shelter because I live alone, and basically my son came to take me to Georgia, but we discovered the hurricane was going to Georgia also, and I decided to just come here and shelter because my husband passed, and I don't want to be home alone." Many, though, were heeding the mandatory evacuation orders that stretched from the Panhandle south along the Gulf Coast in low-lying areas around Tallahassee, Gainesville, Cedar Key, Lake City, Tampa, and Sarasota. Most gas stations in the Tallahassee area were shut down or out of gas. School districts and numerous universities called off classes for Friday. A turn toward the north is expected this morning, taking the center over central and northeastern Georgia. After that, Helene is expected to turn northwestward and slow down over the Tennessee Valley later today and Saturday, the Hurricane Center reported. Continued weakening is expected, and Helene is expected to become a post-tropical low this afternoon or tonight. However, the fast forward speed will allow strong, damaging winds, especially in gusts, to penetrate well inland across the southeastern United States, including over the higher terrain of the southern Appalachians. The center also said that over portions of the southeastern U.S. into the southern Appalachians, Helene is expected to produce total rain accumulations of 6 to 12 inches, with isolated totals around 20 inches. This rainfall will likely result in catastrophic and potentially life-threatening flash and urban flooding, along with significant and record river flooding. Numerous significant landslides are expected in steep terrain across the southern Appalachians. The Weather Channel's Abrams said, "We've already seen double-digit rainfall in western North Carolina, and we could still get another half foot or more. That means there's a risk of catastrophic and life-threatening flash flooding, with the possibility, by the way, of flooding stretching all the way to the Mississippi River. All of this water will cause rivers to rise, some of which could crush their records by several feet. CBS News senior weather and climate producer David Parkinson described Helene as a gargantuan storm. Its tropical storm force winds were extending outward up to 275 miles from its center, mainly east of that center, the Hurricane Center said. NASA shared video of the hurricane as seen from the International Space Station, showing the size of the storm as it churned through the Gulf of Mexico Thursday afternoon. Forecasters expected the storm surge to reach 5 to 10 feet from Florida's Ocilla River to Chassahowitzka, Florida. Other areas could see anywhere from 3 to 7 feet of water, the Hurricane Center warned. The water impacts are probably going to be the most impactful part of the storm, the most deadly part of the storm. Jamie Rome, a deputy director at the Hurricane Center, told CBS News. The possibility of tornadoes remained a concern, with the Hurricane Center saying they could pop up in parts of eastern Georgia, Friday morning, and through the afternoon over the Carolinas and southern Virginia. President Biden and DeSantis declared emergencies in the state earlier in the week, and evacuation orders were issued in several counties. At the University of Tampa, officials were trying to evacuate all residential students by Wednesday afternoon. States of emergency were also declared in Georgia, North and South Carolina, and as far north as Virginia. Exceptionally warm Gulf water fuels hurricanes. Sea surface temperatures in the path of Helene were as warm as 89 degrees Fahrenheit, 2 to 4 degrees above normal. These record water temperatures have been made significantly more likely by human-caused climate change, according to Climate Central. The North Atlantic Ocean as a whole has seen record warm temperatures in 2024, storing 90% of the excess heat from climate change produced by greenhouse gas pollution. Record warm water in the Gulf almost certainly acted like jet fuel in intensifying the storm. Brian McNulty, senior research associate at the University of Miami Rosenstiel School of Marine, Atmospheric, and Earth Science, recently noted that ocean heat content in the Gulf of Mexico is the highest on record. Warm water is a necessary ingredient to strengthen tropical systems.
These little tiny homes are what got picked up and floated into the trees.
Not only is it